Welcome to Pathways to Peace, creating peace inside and around us with emotional intelligence, or EQ. With your host, Matt Perelstein. In every episode, we explore the art, science, and magic of EQ for peace, power, and purpose in life. You can find this show at www.eqforpeace.org and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Now here's the host of Pathways to Peace, Matt Perelstein.
Hello. Welcome back again. Thanks for joining us once again. This is our second episode, and we're excited to be here to share with you some more of our thoughts about pathways to peace. We're trying to get to peace. So today I have with me the world famous Bill Overton. He he is one of my main men in EQ for Peace. See me over here. Here is EQ for Peace, and I'll explain in a little bit later why he is my very first guest and most important guest, because he's got some things going on that are fantastic, and I want you guys to hear about it. So Bill, say hello.
Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Excellent. Well done. Beautiful. You're 1-0 so far. Beautiful. Okay, so we're talking about I want to go to the big picture again, because this is kind of a weird concept. No one's thought of it, or I don't think anybody's thought of this before, and certainly no one's on yelling at you about it, talking about it and getting excited about it. So what we're talking about is that we believe that peace is possible. We believe that peace is possible. We believe that it is, and how we get there is through emotional training. We can't get to peace without being able to be in charge of our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. So last time we talked about some strategy, or this time we're going to talk about some strategies on how we think we can get there. All right, in real life, real life. This is not just some airy-fairy generalized thing. This is real life, and we really believe that we can get there. Next week we'll talk about what we're doing to get there already, and what we've done, and what we're doing, and what we're working on at eqforpeace.org. And so for next time, but this time we're going to talk about the strategies for getting there. So as you know, there's a lot of bad news in the world. There's a lot of things going on. These are violent times, physically, socially, economically, environmentally. We're having problems, a lot of problems. But EQ is good news. This is a good news. This is what I'm saying. This is one of the best news that we've heard. Is that a word? And what we've had in a long time, because what we're saying and what we've found is with emotional intelligence, no matter what's happening outside, no matter a lot of the bad news, there's so much that we cannot control. We can control. We have the power to control what's going on inside of us. And that is, to me, is the best news. That is the best news. It was a life changer for me, and that's why I'm jumping up down about it. I found out that I wasn't as messed up as I thought I was. Well, maybe, but anyway, it's mostly about not knowing about our thoughts and our feelings. I had no idea, went all the way through school, all the way through high school and college, and I was pretty disappointed because I learned lots of cool stuff, left brain stuff, to get a job, which was interesting, sort of, but I didn't learn much about me, about how to deal with me. I went all the way through school, and I'm like, what? That's it? Really? So I realized that it was about my thoughts and my feelings. I didn't know anything about them. My parents didn't know anything about it. I've asked them about it. My dad said, I wouldn't know if it slapped me upside the head, quote, which is true. Anyway, so I didn't know about them. I found out that's a cool thing. That's an amazing thing. And then I also found out that not only did I not know about it, nobody else knows about him either. Nobody knows about him. And so I started going, hey, this is really important, you guys. So that's why I'm here doing what I'm doing, yelling at you about this. So it's based on I'm meeting next time, a couple times from now. Our next guest in a couple weeks is Ray Mathis, and Ray Mathis calls it the great lie. Check this out, the great lie, which is that people make you think and feel and say and do what you do. that the outside world makes you do this thing, makes you do what you do and feel what you feel. People hurt your feelings. People make you mad, right? That's not true. It's not true. And that's really, really good news. We put the meaning on it. We put our spin on it. What people can make us feel things physically. I can make you feel something physically without your permission, but I cannot make you feel nothing emotionally without your permission. I can't do it. And so, so that's good news. That's the good news, that we are in charge of us. We are in charge of us. We are born with all the stuff that we need. We are born with everything that we need. We just don't know how to use it. And so it's an educational problem. So that's good news. It's an education problem. So that is good news. All we got to do is learn how to use it, and boom, off we go. That's cool, right? That's cool. So what we're doing at EQ for Peace, and what Bill is an expert at, is teaching that, is getting it, and not teaching it like blah, like put it on you, but more bring it out. Well, both, actually both. Here's some information and what's going on inside of you. I can't tell you how to feel. I can't tell you about your emotions. You got to ask. You got to find out for yourself. You got to go inside and look and feel and experience and be and accept or not accept and all that kind of good stuff. It's up to you. It's up to you. And that's good news. I call it emotional responsibility. So there's a science to it, of how our emotions work. Our amygdala, our prefrontal cortex, the different sides of our brain, all that cool stuff, real. That's very, very real. The science to it is very real. And there's an art to it. There's an art to it. How do we do this? How? That's the part I'm most interested in. That's what I'm specializing in. I'm not that great at the science part. I'm not that smart IQ wise, but my EQ is okay. And that's what I'm trying to work with, is that's what people I think need to know. So we have good IQ. We've got good left brain, but we need to increase our right brain. We need to add this skill, we're not taking anything away. We're adding this skill, these skills to our knowledge, and our information. So left brain, right brain, balance, both of them very important, right? So Dalai Lama says that the world peace begins with inner peace. And we are saying that you can find and create and build your inner peace using emotional intelligence. It's really, really, really hard to do it without emotional intelligence. I don't know if you can. I don't know. Maybe you can. I couldn't. I can do it now, but anyway, emotional intelligence and inner peace is based on emotional intelligence. Sorry, right? So if we start from the inside, we got 5 components to this thing. It starts with us, starts inside. Then we have home, the rest of us, our family, work, school, and bigger picture, governments, big guys, right? So it's me, school, work, home, government. All right. So we're trying to teach the world emotional intelligence. This may be the biggest project ever attempted, because we're trying to teach the whole world and get it into all the schools everywhere. It seems absurd, but I think it might be possible. Bill actually has a slideshow on the 5 steps to world peace. It's pretty amazing, actually, and you'd be able to find it on eqforpeace.org. And so we've been working through this for a long time, and now the purpose of this podcast is to let you guys know what we're working on, because there's some amazing stuff, and it's different, and it's simple. It ain't easy, but it's simple. And most of it is pretty low cost or totally free. It's pretty one of the if we add the science and the art together, we get magic. And one of the magical things about emotional intelligence is that it's pretty much free inside of all of us. So again, self, work, home, school, government, right? Well, two of those, home and school, we can kind of embed and integrate emotional intelligence into our day, into our lives, into our families' lives, into our classrooms, into our environment. We kind of need to infuse it into something, into this. So Bill has come up with 3 components components to adding SEL, which is social emotional learning, which is EQ, same thing, into homes and classrooms. So that's why I was excited about bringing him on. He was a teacher for many, many years and a principal, and they taught SEL and EQ in their classrooms a lot. And they had people coming from around the world to watch him. How did you do that? That's pretty incredible. How did you do that, right? And and he set a really cool example. He's got some testimonials he gave me on people that are now adults that were his kids, and going, dude, you changed my life. This is so wonderful. This is great. So I don't mean to make you blush, but you're one of my heroes here in the EQ world. So say something profound, and then you can go do your slideshow.
That's it. Yeah, you just did the slideshow, man. Yeah, I'd say to Matt Singh's ditto. Thank you very much for coming.
Right on. Okay, so anyway, what do you want to present, and why do people care, and all that?
Well, I think there's lots of reasons. I think that kind of go back and jump on some of the things that Matt said, is that I don't think life happens without a certain aspects of emotional intelligence. I don't think we necessarily identify it as emotional intelligence, but it's something that is all aspects of our lives, especially in any kind of relationship or perceived relationship or, upcoming relationship or even fictional relationship. And so I think that, how we navigate our emotions through life really adds or detracts from the quality of life, not only our own, but that are from people around us, like in school, like in business, like at home, and like in the world. I think a little bit different than Matt. I think that we did learn EQ, but not in school. We learned it on the playground. And I think that, but the problem was that it wasn't explicit knowledge. Nobody told us that, when you make fair teams, that's a good thing, or something like that in a game or sport. So, this is kind of putting words and vocabulary in a way that we can understand it and hopefully continue on to other people. The pathway to peace is really important, and I think one thing is that you have to believe that it's possible. The PowerPoint slide that I came up with, which is really the 5 aspects, it really is 5 different ways to prove that it's possible to make contact with, 8 billion people or whatever it is. And I think that whenever I've done this before with classes or something like that, people tend to, especially adults, tend to roll their eyes and, kind of, blow it off kind of thing. The thing is, though, it's possible. And that's the first step. And even people like Deepak Chopra, can't understand why we haven't achieved world peace more quickly than we have, and that it's as difficult as it has been. I think he attributes that to distractions of material goods, maybe. Anyway, the 3 components that I've come up with, that basically this is after reflecting on, my 40-year career in education, actually more than that now. But and so basically, upon kind of leaving the classroom, I kind of started thinking, what did I do that was, what was the social emotional program? And there were 3 elements to it: proactive, responsive, and embedded. And so basically, before you can even start anything, you have to kind of consider emotional safety, whether it's your family, your work environment, your classroom, or even yourself. You have to be emotionally safe. People have to be willing to share. People have to be willing to take interpersonal risks, be vulnerable. And that means that whoever's facilitating must really assure them, through actions and words, that nobody's going to respond in a terrible way. They're not going to be mocked. They're not going to be teased. They basically are safe to do that. So being able to speak openly is important. Making sure everybody has equal opportunities and approximate time to share so that no one hogs the conversation. Not allowing any kind of interruptions, name calling, put downs, or anything like that. And then also some validation after a person speaks. We have to realize that when people share something, that's a risk. and we're putting ourselves at risk to, share anything. That the closer to our hearts, the more vulnerable we are. So first of all, validating that they said something. So thank you for sharing. And then what I call punctuating, that basically after somebody says something, you at least respond with, "Oh, I didn't think of that before," or "That's an excellent comment," or something like that, just to, again, to assure them that they've been heard. I think fundamentally we all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. We want to be acknowledged as being a contributing member of whatever we're belonging to, And then it's important that we don't make any judgment regardless of what is said from the participant. The first component, the proactive, is an intentionally scheduled time when EQ content and vocabulary is introduced. This is the most common form of emotional intelligence education in schools. It typically comes in a program, often published, and has kind of their own, scope and sequence and their own activities and so on. To me, I'm not a huge advocate of those, but they don't hurt, I should say. And that basically they're good for introducing vocabulary and concepts that you can always use in a variety of ways in the future. Mm-hmm. Some of the proactive components, you can do demonstrations or role playing, hands-on, explicit lessons, like, let me tell you what resilience is, and you can do that at any age. I think our society really downplays the potential that young kids have. They don't know and can't articulate everything that adults can, but at the same time, they can understand in their world and in their language a lot of these concepts. For resilience, you could say, or adversity, you could say, have you ever done anything hard? Was it, adverse for you to, jump through the hoops, and just use it lightly in those ways, and you can introduce those concepts. And then the more you use that word or those concepts or discuss them, the better. Journal writing is an excellent way to debrief or process what's going on. But these are different ways of different forms of the proactive component. Most teachers use it, maybe 30 minutes a week. I'm more of an advocate of the more the better, and it doesn't have to be. It's not mutually exclusive to academic learning. Castle has done some excellent research with hundreds of thousands of students and hundreds of thousands of hours of observation that basically has shown that standardized test scores actually go up with a school that has a quality SEL program. And what I'm suggesting here is that this is what a quality SEL program or EQ program could look like, both at home and at school. So at home, how might you do, a proactive part? When might you sit there and talk to your kids about something? And so to me, there's some of these opportunities that come up just naturally, like reading at night, like the dinner table, all kinds of things, long drives and so on, where you can ask your kids just kind of randomly, do you know what the word adversity means? And if not, help them to, understand by your explanation and using examples from their own lives. So it's just basically a quiet time that after reading the story, say, let me tell you about this, or even better, bringing out the character, which is actually another component. And so taking the time to do that is really important, and it introduces the ideas of concepts related to emotional intelligence. The other thing is that once you've introduced the word adversity, for example, the next day, if they're having a hard time with something, cleaning the room, let's say, you could say, is this kind of an adverse situation for you? Is this a form of adversity for you? And you can just keep planting those seeds and how they're using it. And the older and the more the older they get and the more they use those words, the better understanding they have of them and the way they can apply those and then figure out a way out of them, which comes with a different talk, maybe the next night or something like that. The second component is called the responsive component. And this is not so intentional. This is more intuitive. This is when you have a conversation with parents or groups of people or students or an individual, whatever, And basically, it is a time when you debrief what happened. And this is basically the greatest time and greatest opportunity for kids to have a predictable time when they can be assured of being heard. So basically, sometimes I think in the heat of action, we, send our children to the room or whatever, but that shouldn't be the end of it. It's after that, after the emotions have calmed down a little bit, that we should go back and revisit what happened with our kids, maybe privately, or if it's a family thing altogether, and or with the whole class, and talk about what just happened, and have everybody kind of understand the lessons that are provided there, all these other things that came up. I believe in a classroom that it opens up and frees the brain from being overwhelmed or hijacked, by an emotional sense of fear of some kind. And so it allows people to calm down, which happens, with the brain too at that time. And then we can access the prefrontal cortex, which is the problem solving kind of thing. So basically, after we have this heightened, kind of arousal and anger or frustration or whatever it is, we remove ourselves from that situation temporarily, and then we revisit it by saying, this is what I was thinking. This is what were you thinking? And there's a time to come to some win-win kind of agreement. That happened with my daughter a lot, my oldest daughter, when she was younger. The other thing about responsive is being able to predict the emotions of others. Sometimes facial expressions are very, very accurate. Sometimes they're not, though. Body languages of noticing tension or rigidity or something like that is also a part of being able to then respond to what's going on with this. Classroom meetings, I think, are probably the greatest gift, and they can be family meetings too, where we get together and we talk about this problem. This is a good medium for doing the proactive as well, but then to talk about after recess. For kids, their reality is recess. That is their lives. And so you ask any child, what's your favorite subject? They're going to say recess 9 times out of 10. And so the thing about it is that it is their lives. And so those parts of their lives can hold a tremendous amount of emotional garbage, or emotional baggage can be created there. So taking an opportunity after recesses to kind of just check in. How did it go? What did it look like? What did it sound like? What could you have done differently? And then also it's a lesson for everybody else that's in the meeting as well. There was a student I had that was on the spectrum, and great guy, extraordinarily intelligent. And he used to not deal well with social situations like games and like PE and stuff like that. And he'd storm off and swear and, kind of semi-violent, but not towards others. And he had these things that basically stopped the game. Sometimes he would take the ball from the game and so on. And so people didn't like that. As a result, they didn't like him. But what he did is that he realized that he was going to have what I call a day in court. So because we were going to debrief recess and PE after we had played that, each day, he realized that he was going to have a chance to talk about this issue, but he could let go of it for right now. So he didn't ruin the game anymore. He didn't stomp off. He didn't create this huge scene. And he was able to relax during the activity, regardless of how fair or whatever it was. And because he knew we were going to talk about it afterwards. And you just watch over the course of the year, his whole demeanor, his whole body, changed, and his, social success and people enjoying him and respecting him and being a part of his world.
Nice.
You can do these things with one person, 2 people. You can do them with a whole class. In a family situation, sometimes it's good to do it during dinner, like I said, and talk about, this is what happened to me today. What do you guys think about that? And it doesn't matter. You don't have to do what everybody says, but basically you're showing them, first of all, that you believe that they have something positive to contribute. So so that you're actually asking them a question that you want their answer. Also is that it's an opportunity to use real life situations as a kind of a training ground for different things that might come up. It's a great opportunity to talk about, well, what do we want out of vacation? Well, as we're planning a vacation, do we all want to have just roller coaster rides, or do we want a natural setting? I mean, so these are all things you can talk about. You can talk about problems that came up. You could talk about even problems that the house or the shelter is having or whatever. And so it's a great opportunity again at home. The responsive components I mentioned can be small groups. Sometimes I've seen it done with students facilitating, like on the playground, and I've seen them help with problem solving. This one is a little bit tougher, though, because sometimes other kids will feel like that the student that's facilitating has an agenda, might not like them, so of course they're going to side with the other person, or might not understand, or it won't be confidential, whatever. So that's a little bit tough one, and I would be really careful about using that one. So at home, like kind of mentioned some things. Doing it at night, before bed, you could do it like, okay, remember today when you and I had that argument about whatever. How are you with that now? I mean, do you feel better about it? Let me tell you how I feel. Let me tell you about how I feel now. It can also be done at times, like I said, dinner tables, and it can be done anytime, before or after. Well, after, I should say, after the emotional event. Sometimes it's not best to do it right then, but after the kind of the emotion drains a bit, it's best. But at the same time, debriefing situations that come up is really a great idea for families. And at the dinner table, talking about these things, and talking about things that in people's days that came up and what they did about it, and getting suggestions from the rest of the family, helping them to learn from the opportunity that you had as well. There's something that EQ for Peace has started in a few different countries, and those are clubs. They are presently, right now, they are after school clubs. There's a chance that some of them might actually make it into taking classroom time. But these clubs so far in Nigeria and Sierra Leone are after school, and there's more kind of waiting to happen. And that's going to be a format for kids in kind of a less structured environment to be introduced to EQ concepts, vocabulary, application, under the guise of all fun activities and so on. So that's something that's happening. So it can happen, this EQ kind of dissemination of information as well as application can happen in a variety of environments. The third component is called embedded. This is, to me, where teachers can see that the separation of EQ lessons and the rest of the curriculum don't have to be separated. I don't think they should be. I think the sooner that we all realize that, as I mentioned before, that EQ is everywhere in all parts of our life, that basically, we can kind of have it more the forefront of our thinking and hopefully influence our actions and our own thinking in a better way. There's two parts to this component. One of them is where the adults put themselves into the students' minds or kids' minds, anticipating any kind of emotional challenges. One thing I think of, for example, is in younger grades, we take for granted that starting small group instruction is without any kind of tension or trauma or anything like that when we start it, especially in the beginning of the school year. And we just go through it and we just assume that, the kids are fine with it. The problem with young kids is that they don't always tell you with their actions what they're really thinking. And sometimes there's a lot more fear that goes with these things than we kind of think there is. So in addressing this in an embedded way, before we start small group instruction, before we even select the groups or whatever, we talk to the whole class about, what is this going to be like? Is it possible that you to get in and out of these groups? Are they permanent? And also the kind of fears that kids have, and this is thinking like a kid, is that, will I be the only person there or the only boy there? Will I be the only girl there? Will I look stupid? Will I look too smart? And these are all things that are going in through people's minds, or possibly going through their minds. And it's better to default to addressing them and not having them on their minds than it is not to, if that makes any sense. I think in high school, about the upcoming prom, these people right here look, really happy and excited, and they should be, and in most cases would be. That doesn't mean it doesn't come without fear. And I probably think for all the adults out there, we can figure out, some of the fears that might go along with this. And especially with the pressures that are put on, adolescents and young adults these days. So addressing that ahead of time, and even in class doing it, taking a class period and say, okay, how many people are thinking about the prom, and what are you thinking about the prom? What are your fears? You're not asking people to identify their own personal fears, but what might be fears that people might have? What might be concerns that they might have? What kind of things might be really positive about this experience? And so, kind of bring them out in the open. I call that addressing the elephant in the room before they happen. The other thing that happens with that, when you free that elephant, is that they're much more able to focus on learning. And this is where the 18 points improved standardized test scores come from, because it does free and open up the way their brains work, and they aren't hijacked and stuck in the limbic system. So this is
kind of wrap up, Bill.
Wrap up. Okay, real fast. This other part is where we integrate emotional intelligence concepts into the regular curriculum. So if we're studying or reading Little Red Riding Hood, we're talking about her qualities. What about the character traits of the wolf? And is there a way that this story could end differently? And you can do that with novels. You can do that with history. You can put it anywhere. There's even ways you can do it at home. And the same thing in doing it at home, between events that happen and things that they see on TV or read about or anything like that. And I'll stop there.
Okay, cool. So so we can embed this stuff into. Go ahead to toward the end of the slides where you got your contact information, Bill, or go through them. There you go, in your book. So we can embed information or embed emotional intelligence training into our everyday life, all day, every day. We're trying to convince you, if you will. People have said, what are you selling? And I'm like, well, we're selling you to you. We're selling your emotions, that they're much, much more important than we ever imagined. Our emotions are much more important than we ever imagined. We poo-poo them, we put them down, we don't talk about them much. And so Bill's saying, talk about them. We got to talk about them in school, at home, with each other, to ourselves, all of that. And so it starts with awareness. First, always, that we're aware of what's going on, that we have thoughts and feelings. We do have thoughts and feelings all day, every day. We can't get away from it. We can try, but we're going to have thoughts and feelings. We better get good at both of those. Awareness, acceptance. We accept what we're thinking and feeling, what other people are thinking and feeling. Acceptance is one of the keys to life, in my opinion, and to inner peace, actually, especially. And then action, awareness, acceptance, action. What are you going to do about it, if anything? Sometimes no action is a good action with strong emotions. So we're trying to embed, I like that word very much, embed this into our daily lives, into people's, into our culture, into our work, home, school, self, government, all of that. We're trying to embed this into it, because it's already happening, but we're trying to infuse this in as well. So Bill, that was a great presentation of that. We can do it at school. We can do it at home. We can do it at the dinner table. We can do it in our classrooms. That's pretty cool. And I think that if we teach and we're talking to schools, especially, they're digging it. They are digging it worldwide. They're saying, yes, we know that the emotional intelligence training is important, that social emotional learning is critical. We know a couple are not, but mostly their teachers know and schools know that they need this stuff. So that's pretty cool. And so I got a couple of takeaways from this, not a couple, actually a bunch. We'd like for you to join us in this humongous project that we're doing to teach the world EQ at eqforpeace.org. So you can sign up with us. We want you to volunteer if you want, sponsor an event if you want, take a class, learn more about it, watch YouTubes, start a club at home or at school. You can, it can be in any group. Actually, you can start a club about this, and we have a ton of information about it now. Bill has written some amazing stuff on how to get started, how to make it safe, like you said, how to kind of integrate, how to introduce the subject and then play a game, any game, have fun with it, and then go back, like you said, and review. What's the word? Debrief, reflect on what did we just learn? What just happened? Did you feel left out? Did you see someone else feeling left out? Can you do something about that? That kind of thing. And you can expand people's mind significantly on emotions on purpose by bringing it up and talking about it. So, we practice journaling too. I'm a big fan. Me and Bill both are big fans of journal. This is not my journal, but I journal like a maniac. Write down what's going on inside of you. Explore. What I say about, you want to learn about emotions? Shut your mouth, shut your eyes, and go inside and look and feel and be and experience and listen to yourself. And don't be critical. Don't cut on you. Don't use other people's words to shut yourself down. Your self-talk is super important. Be nicer to you. Be a better parent. Be a better partner to yourself. Please. So there's tons of stuff you can do personally and expansion wise. So on here on the screen right now is Bill's contact information. Want some more information? WholeChildEducationalServices.com. WJ Overton at sbcglobal.net and eqforpeace.org. He's all over on there. Once you go to the next slide, Bill, I think you have more, or there's your book. He's wrote this great book on school, how to work with kids to do projects that they are interested in. You don't just jam stuff into them. You get them interested, ask them, and they are totally engaged and love it, and they get their energy going. And
they're also
go ahead.
EQ is definitely embedded in these projects.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, good stuff. So go ahead and turn off this slideshow if you want. And we would like to thank you for joining us today. Appreciate you considering that emotional intelligence might be a fantastic thing, because it is kind of magical. And hope to see you next time. We'll keep going. We'll talk about what EQ for Peace is doing. We've been spending a couple years on trying to figure out what's the best things we can do, and we got a lot of stuff started. And so if you want to join in, please help us, because we got a ton of work to do to get the world peaceful, educated and peaceful, in that order. So thank you, Bill. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for having me.
We're out.
Bye. Bye.
You've been listening to Pathways to Peace, creating peace inside and around us with emotional intelligence, EQ, with your host, Matt Perelstein. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing this show with others. You can catch prior episodes at www.eqforpeace.org and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more.